Welcome to the Glenn Mercer Show, where we talk all things vegan. If you're not already vegan, no worries, we'll get you there. If you are, tune in for health advice, information on climate change, and all the damage done by our most destructive industry, animal agriculture. We'll also talk cooking, theater, film, and culture. My two reasons for starting this podcast: to entertain, to inform, and to make people vegan. Oh, that's 3. Shit. Hello and welcome to the Glenn Mercer Show. You could find us across all your favorite podcast platforms. You could find us on YouTube, and please remember to subscribe. And you can find us at realmeneatplants.com. My guest today comes to us all the way from Queensland, Australia. Kate Galli is a vegan health coach and animal rights activist, and the creator of StrongBodyGreenPlanet.com and the Healthification podcast. Kate, welcome to the show.
Glenn, it is such a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming to us from the future. It is tomorrow there. And how's tomorrow going?
Tomorrow is looking good, nice and sunny, and it's all good.
Very good. That gives me a degree of optimism. So tell us, Kate, how did you become vegan and when and why?
So I became vegan just over 8 years ago, and that followed 23 years as a vegetarian. I was that typical little animal loving girl who used to say I could never be vegetarian until something changed. It was a particular conversation with a girl at school. I became vegetarian basically overnight for the animals. And sadly, it would take a further 23 years until I saw the amazing documentary Cowspiracy. I learnt that I had been lied to, that we've all been lied to, that as a vegetarian, animals were still dying for my food choices. By that point in time, I was a vegetarian personal trainer and I ate super high protein, low carbs, up to 21 egg whites a day, I'm sad to admit. And so I basically then became vegan overnight for the animals. And I had some hesitations because I'd spent over a decade, I guess, sculpting the body that I was super confident with, that worked really well for me, that I'd based my career around. However, I kind of just had to make the decision, it's not about your vanity. And I actually even thought it's not so much about your health. It's about the animals and their suffering. And that's why I became vegan.
Now, let's go back to that little girl you had a conversation with when you were a little girl who turned you vegetarian. How old were you at the time?
It's not so little. I was about
Oh,
16, or
oh,
I was
16.
16.
Okay.
Yeah.
16. And she was 16 too?
Yeah, we were at school and she basically painted out the incredibly obvious fact that I can't believe I hadn't realized that if I was going to eat an animal, that animal needed to die. I actually grew up in New Zealand and I remember going skiing and we'd go on these 3-hour car trips to get to the mountain and these huge trucks full of sheep, crammed full of sheep on their way to slaughter would pass us. And I never asked mum and dad what was happening, but I remember the feeling, like just the overwhelming feeling of fear that emanated from those trucks as we passed them on the road, and I just knew something was wrong. But I guess to my disappointment in myself, I didn't investigate further. I didn't look into it until that conversation.
So she told you that those animals had to die for you to eat them.
Obvious, right?
And that was it, huh?
That was it,
Boy, if
100%.
it was only that easy to convince everyone.
Glenn, that is one of the biggest struggles of being vegan, right? It's not about your health. You generally get healthier. It's not about the food. My experience is it's more delicious. It's about relationships with non vegans and the fact that they don't change overnight like we might have changed overnight. And it's maintaining empathy for those non vegans in your life when they're not making these changes.
Right. Well, you see, you came to it first for the animals, right?
I
For
did.
animal rights.
A
And then you
100%.
discovered that it was healthier. and then you
I
discovered
did.
that it was better for the planet, right?
Well, exactly right. That is the order, indeed.
Right.
And again, a bit of context. When I became vegan, I was that vegetarian personal trainer in a very gym bro type of a gym where the boys ate all the meat they could. They advocated keto to their clients whenever their clients wanted to lose fat. And I was already a bit of a freak for being the little vegetarian in the gym. Now, bear in mind, I was the one that got sick the very least, and they would definitely recognize that I trained hard and looked the part, but I was a bit of a freak for eating vegetarian. And I remember when I announced that I was going to become vegan, one of the boys said, "Well, goodbye, lean muscle mass." And he was wrong.
Yeah.
Thankfully, I didn't lose any muscle. I didn't gain any fat. I didn't lose any strength or energy, or we know all of this now. However, it was a hesitation then.
So it turns out that it isn't meatballs that gives you lean muscle mass. Is that correct?
That is
That,
correct, luckily.
yeah. What a shocker that is, huh?
100% right.
Yeah. So how many women were in this gym most of the time versus men in terms of trainers?
Oh, so trainers generally, very often I was the only female trainer. That did change over the years. Our clients were about 50-50.
Yeah.
However, I will say I put a lot of pressure on myself because all of my clients were non-vegan. They knew I was vegetarian, but I didn't push it on them. And I knew they'd be watching the transition. Like if anything negative happened with my health, they would be very aware and they would blame it on the vegan lifestyle.
Yeah. See, now I came to veganism again, like you, through vegetarianism first.
Mm.
And like you, I was a vegetarian for longer than I wish I had been. I wish I had gone straight to vegan.
Mm.
Um, but somebody made me worry about protein. And so for 19 stupid years, I ate cheese.
Yeah.
It was the only animal product I ate. Um, but so for me, health came first.
Mm.
I, I became vegetarian for my health. And then I realized if I want to care about my health, I better go vegan. And then I learned about the planet and the consequences of animal agriculture on the planet. And as for the animal rights part of it, it was always in the background for me,
Mm.
not because I didn't care, not because I wasn't on the side of the animal rights activists, but because I had trouble making the case.
Mm.
If I was home at a Thanksgiving with Aunt Rosie, who I love dearly, I could say to Aunt Rosie, eating that turkey, that's not going to be good for your heart.
Mm.
Um, and along the way, I could say when I learned more about it, it's destroying the planet. It was very hard for me to say, Aunt Rosie, it's cruel to the turkeys, because
Mm.
to me, if I said that, that risked friction between me and my beloved Aunt Rosie. So for you, have you found a way to make the case on animal rights to non-vegans that doesn't risk blowing up the relationship?
Great question. First, I'll say I think you were a lot wiser about it than me because I always led with my heart and the animal rights, and I wasn't so good at putting my place in the person I was speaking to. I wasn't. I wasn't so good at that, and it's still a constant struggle. I will say that, and the toughest relationship in my life right now is my father, who's basically an anti vegan. And I don't know how much progress I've made with him. I guess I've made a little progress. I find it easier with people I don't know. It's amazing how, with clients or strangers on the street doing vegan activism or whoever it may be, it is easier to, I guess, put all that history aside, or you don't have history, or whatever it is, and have that in that thing that you feel that they might connect with and go there. I think the closer someone is to you, maybe the tougher it is. So I will say I spent many years as an angry vegan, and I kind of consciously, well, the worst event of my life dragged me out of being an angry vegan. And also, I consciously dragged myself out of it as well because I learnt hundreds of interviews on my podcast I learned the people who are most effective. Like, I love all those crazy animal rights activists. I describe myself as one. Mad respect, love you, need you. However, the people who are having the most positive impact and the people who were happier in their day to day life, they just seem to be the people that led with love and compassion and deliciousness. And so, Glenn, it's like a constant daily struggle for me to do that as well.
Tell us about that unhappy event in your life and how that changed you.
100%. So this is heavy. The backstory is that a few years ago, probably about 5 or 6 years ago now, when I was deep into the animal rights activism, a fairly fresh vegan, my dear mum, who is like such a foodie and the most generous and loving person I know, and we always do family Christmas with all the deliciousness at our house, she rang me and she said, Katie, I don't know what to do about Christmas. You're this vegan animal rights activist. Dad's the anti-vegan. Unless you mastermind a vegan family feast and sell the family on it, I don't know what to do. And I was like, amazing. I will mastermind the feast. Be great if you could sell the family on it. Anyway, so the feast happened. It was amazing. I cooked all these new recipes. It went down really, really well. And side note, I'd been emotionally blackmailing my parents since I was vegan to try and get them on board for their health. So for my 40th birthday, I said, I don't want any presents. I just want you guys to watch What the Health. Funnily, that didn't work. However, after this vegan feast at Christmas, the day I was going home back to Sydney after that event, Mum said to me, Katie, will you watch What the Health with me? And I did. And Mum, as a nurse for 30 years and the most compassionate person I know, she resonated not with the animals, but with both the sick care system, where it's not preventative or lifestyle related, it's just keeping people on drugs for the rest of their life. She knew that wasn't working. And she resonated with the communities that were impacted by living around huge factory farms. And she said, Katie, I'm going to try this plant-based thing for a couple of weeks. And so we got her set up with some food before I flew back to Sydney. And that lasted years. So fast forward to the angry vegan components. Just over 2 years ago, nearly 2.5 years ago, I got the phone call from my father that I was always expecting to get from my mother. And it wasn't, Katie, it's your dad. It was, Kate, it's your mum. And Mum had died suddenly. And I'd spoken to her that morning. And then by that afternoon, she was gone. And as anyone listening who has lost the person most important to them in their life knows, like, you can't prepare for it. It's at least as bad as you imagine. It's all consuming. And to be frank, I hadn't even imagined this happening because A, Mum was just so vibrant and giving and full of life. And B, it was too hard to even imagine. And so, and this didn't happen quickly, but over a course of a year, I was just so consumed by sadness that I realized I didn't have the energy to constantly feel angry and frustrated and sad by all the things that the non-vegans were doing around me. And I also noticed that with Mum, I had no regrets. She knew how much I loved and respected her, and vice versa. If that had been Dad, I knew that our relationship needed work. I knew that my vegan lifestyle and ethic was really negatively impacting our relationship. And so I had to make a conscious effort to just lead with more love and compassion and deliciousness, because that's what Mum did. That was a way of honoring her. And as I said, it's a constant work in progress, but it's something I'm very committed to because it's more effective and it's just more fun as well.
Yeah. So now most of the anger is out of your life, I take it.
It's so not. It's just I've got strategies, you know.
Uh-huh.
I wrote a blog post that has resonated with a lot of people on why I stopped being an angry vegan. And I've actually got a few steps if you're willing for me to share those
Sure,
steps
go
because I
ahead. What are
use
the
them
steps
daily.
to getting the anger out of your life as a
Yeah,
vegan?
100%. And as you say, like it relates to whatever conflict you have with someone you love in your life. It might not just be about veganism. But the first step, it's an ABC, and A is all about awareness. So it's a matter of looking at the way that your life is right now and the way that you're feeling right now. And if nothing changes, what is life going to look like in 6 months, in 12 months, in 24 months? How are your relationships with loved ones and colleagues and even randoms on the street? What is that going to look like? And what is it going to cost you so far as your energy and happiness and relationships? B is for brainstorm. And so what I did is I brainstormed the things I could start doing and the things I could stop doing to be less of an angry vegan. So I actually stopped going to the animal rights activism events and holding out the slaughterhouse footage because to hold it, you have to see it, to hang around with other activists. It's firstly the best thing that you can do. And then after a period of time, it's hard to integrate with the non-vegans in your life. I stopped sharing those horrific videos on Facebook. I stopped following some of the people that only shared them. Again, not because I don't care, I care just as much. It was just about my sanity. I started following the people, the farm sanctuaries and the vegan chefs and everything that's out there that made me feel happy and positive. I started sharing my own recipes and deliciousness and just things like that I stopped doing and that I started doing and that I recommend to our listeners if they're resonating. The C is for commitment, and this is why I share widely and freely that I stopped being an angry vegan because, Glenn, you can bet if that little bit of natural, passionate, angry vegan animal rights activist Kate is shining on through, someone's going to call me on it. They'll be like, aren't you no longer that angry vegan? And it's a form of accountability, both, to myself and from them, because I know this is the approach I want to maintain. And equally, I acknowledge that it's an approach that kind of takes daily effort.
Right, right. Now, you grew up in what town in Australia?
Oh, so I was born in Australia, but I grew up in Wellington in New Zealand.
Oh,
It's the
oh, you did.
capital of New Zealand, and I moved to Sydney when I was 21.
Okay. Now, um, Australia years ago compared to now, did it have less fires?
Oh, 100%. Our weather conditions are absolutely terrifying here. I mean, it probably depends on who you speak to. The vast majority of people will admit that extreme weather events are just undeniably and terrifyingly on the rise. A minority like my father won't admit that. Their head is still
Can I speak
stuck.
with Dad someday?
Oh God, I'd love you to. That the limiting factor is that you're vegan. You'd maybe have to lie about that for his ears to be the least bit
Okay.
open. Yeah, weather conditions are so much harsher in a country that already has harsh weather conditions and a country that insists on animal agriculture as, just something that they are not letting go of, even though all the reasons we know they should let go of it.
So when the continent, really, I should say, is on
Hmm.
fire,
Yeah.
fires sometimes all over Australia.
Hmm.
Is it the case that not many people connect that with animal agriculture?
100%. People
Wow.
might even admit that it's climate change. People will think it's fossil fuels, and that's the marketing, right? Very cleverly put to us that we just need electric cars or whatever it may be. The super vast majority, I don't even know if I can think of a non-vegan in my life who would put a connection between animal agriculture and climate change. Even anything environmental in relation to animal agriculture, people just consciously, like willingness with volition, right? People don't want to admit the truth because that might mean they need to change, and change is hard in their minds.
What is it that you think is so hard for people to go from a hamburger to a plant burger, a mushroom burger? What is, you see, that's the thing that amazes me. I just can't understand what's difficult about this.
I
Do
think
you
it might.
understand it?
Here's the thing, the actual action, the transition from the beef burger to the delicious bean burger, that might be that is super easy and easier by the day. Maybe it's the emotional work that they need to do and admit that for decades they've been causing unnecessary suffering and environmental destruction. They could have made this change, they chose not to. Maybe it's easier to just keep ignoring the problem rather than admitting to what you've been consciously contributing to. I don't know. There's got to be a huge emotional component. And also, I'm someone who doesn't really care what, I don't care about being the odd one out. It's always been that way. I'll do what resonates with me. And if other people think that's a bit weird, fine, as long as it's aligned with my heart and my values. I don't think everyone's like that. If they're going to be the odd one out, if it's going to be inconvenient to their host at a party, or they can't have that favorite meal at that favorite restaurant, they don't want that little tiny level of discomfort. They just rather stick with what they've always been doing.
Yeah, I think that's it more than anything else. I think it's
Mm,
the cultural ease.
mm-hmm,
It's going with the group of friends or relatives to the restaurant, and being at work and being able to share in the pepperoni pizza or whatever. I
mm.
think it's not wanting to stand out from the crowd.
Yeah.
And if only all the crowd would go vegan on the same day, I think they'd have no problem with it because the food is better and they get healthier and it would be better for the planet. It's just nobody wants to go first. They don't want to be the odd person out.
100%. And also, they think there's going to be more sacrifice than there is from someone who's eaten meat, who's been vegetarian, is now plant based, vegan. I know my food is so much more delicious and abundant than it ever was. However, if you haven't done it yet, maybe you don't know that, and it's easier to pretend, oh, too hard, too boring, too bland, too whatever, all the excuses, especially when the majority are on your side and the majority are painting those vegans as, a little bit extreme and everything.
Yeah. When people make the excuse of taste,
Mm-hmm.
and they say, well, yeah, I know, Glenn, it's better for your health to be vegan. I grant that. And yeah, of course, it's better for the planet. And obviously, it's better for the animals. But I just love the taste of
Mm-hmm.
pork or something. That to me is just the dumbest excuse because your tastes change, they adapt. If you
Mm-hmm.
just eat some healthy food, have a portobello burger instead of a beef burger, and adapt to that taste, in a week, you'll hate the taste of what you used to like.
It's a dumb excuse. It's a selfish excuse. All they need to do is go back in time and think of something they used to like and now it's repulsive to them. I
Yeah.
used to like full fat milk and then I used to like skim milk, and now they're both not even food. They're horrific. And I love the taste of all the plant milks.
Yeah.
I can admit that that changed. Most vegans will say we didn't become vegan because of the taste. We love the way animal products taste. But now we love the way that plants taste, at
Right.
least as much, probably more, certainly more for me.
Right. Tell us about the book you wrote, which is called The Plant Positive Journal, and people can find that at strongbodygreenplanet.com. Why a journal, and how big is this journal?
Thank you so much. This journal is a beautiful beast. It's 508 pages and
Wow.
weighs nearly a kilo. I do post it all around the world regularly, though, and there is an online version. It is a venture of the heart, and it actually started because many years ago, my dear mom gave me the most beautiful gratitude diary for Christmas. And it was a stunning work of art. She knew I loved to plan my day to come the night before. I'm very organized with my time, and I like ticking things off. And this gratitude diary had beautiful artwork. It had monthly writings about the sun and the moon and the stars, and I never read any of them. However, I scribbled all over it. And I thought, this is stunning, but it's missing something. It's not vegan. How about if I created an equally beautiful journal that you use to plan your day and week and month to come? However, also, if you're open to it, and I hope you are, each month and each week, I share the steps that help you live and love a healthy plant-based lifestyle. So it's full of recipes and art, and even more than that, my specialty is helping people create the mindset that makes their best eating and exercising choices simple and sustainable. And I share that in the Plant Positive Journal. I share a Sunday self-care every week because as vegans, we need to get much better at that. And so that's the journal. I created it, and it's dedicated to my mom. It's got a few of her recipes in it. I'm creating a new one this year. And it's also like my little vegan Trojan horse because non-vegans are buying it, and also people are gifting it. And I love the idea of it flying all around the world and living as this beautiful thing in people's houses. And bit by bit, they're going to read the plant-based, the vegan, the animal rights stuff that I've snuck into it. And, bit by bit, I'm planting these little seeds with people to hopefully adopt a more vegan lifestyle.
Now, it's available as both a PDF and a physical book, right?
It is. It is. Like I've sent over 100 to the US, but I know postage is
Right. How
prohibitive
much
for
is
a lot.
postage for that?
Look, I've got it worked out pretty well. $20 US for postage. So the
Wow.
price of the journal is lower than it should be so that people pay postage so that it does work out. And
Okay.
it's selling well in the US, but eventually I'll get it shipped directly there with some other creators so that it's
Okay.
even more cost effective.
Okay. And so this journal has pages in it, I assume, for the consumer to fill in their
100%.
information.
The way I use it is it's all structured to plan your day, all the tasks that you need to do in your day. I also have 3 gratitudes today, 3 reference points for success, 3 things that would make tomorrow fabulous. So it can be used completely like that, which is exactly how I use it. Some people just journal in it though. They just write in it. That's not how I use it. I use the online version of it for that, and the printed version just as kind of time management, time and mind management. So yeah, and then every single week there's a weekly action where you take an action that is aligned with, again, creating that most effective mindset to make this lifestyle work for you long term.
Okay. Well, but since you say you're trying to make tomorrow fabulous,
Yes.
but you're in Australia where it already is tomorrow. So what you really have to do is make the day after tomorrow fabulous.
Okay. Yeah. Whatever
W-
your tomorrow is, I want it to be fabulous.
All right. We're going to take
And I
a
want
quick we're going to take a quick
perfect.
break and we'll be back with Kate Galli.
All right, if you've ever wanted to show off your plant-based lifestyle and do it in style, here's your chance. We have some of the most amazing t-shirts, hats, accessories, coffee mugs, and more at shop.realmeneatplants.com. We have statement t-shirts that will bring a smile to everyone's face. I love the I want tofu tonight tee. Plus, we have podcast tees, Real Women Eat Plants gear, Real Kids Eat Plants, and Real People Eat Plants, just in case men, women, and kids didn't cover it all. Yeah, we love you and love that you want to show off that healthy lifestyle of yours. Again, check out our high-quality gear at shop.realmeneatplants.com and enjoy.
Kate, you have strategies for making vegan living easier. Isn't that true?
I do indeed.
Well, what would those strategies be?
I mean, gosh, where to start? There's so much. I might start with some of the tips that I first shared with my dear mum. And the first of those is if you're really new to the lifestyle, start with those meals that just need a really small tweak to become vegan. When you think about it, what you eat, a lot of it is almost vegan. And it might be a matter of changing the plant-based milk or changing the protein powder from whey to any of the other options that are plant-based, whatever it may be, changing the chicken in a stir fry or curry to lentils or chickpeas. So small tweaks early on. Don't get too adventurous. Just get some early wins under your belts. Next tip, I would say from a health point of view, focus primarily on one ingredient whole foods. So I guess that's pretty common knowledge now. However, we don't want to be relying on all of the amazing transitional processed type vegan foods. I still eat them every single week. You don't want to build your meals around them. And on the matter of whole foods, don't be fearful of whole food carbs. As a personal trainer, my first decade, I steered clear of nearly all carbohydrates. And when I became vegan, bit by bit, I worked in things like potatoes and bananas and lentils. And amazingly, I didn't blow up into twice my size. I just got to enjoy so much more plant-based diversity in my diet.
Yeah.
What what else? I would say don't be intimidated by a recipe flop, right? We all try these new recipes. Maybe we find them online and that's amazing. However, sometimes they don't work. I failed at vegan omelets many times before I made a good one. And
Was
if you
it made
think
from
back,
tofu? What was it made from?
no, I make an amazing tofu scramble, but the actual not scrambled doesn't break apart omelet. You have to use the chickpea flour, right? My first
Oh,
one didn't work, neither did my second or third. But look back on the meat meals that you had, and you've had a lot of really bad meat meals, right? So don't judge a bad vegan meal, or for that matter, a bad vegan restaurant. Don't let that be how you judge every vegan meal or every vegan restaurant. What else? I would say find some of those amazing specialty condiments that just amp up the flavor of any meal. So your meal's primarily whole food plant-based and you build it around your fibrous veg and your plant-based protein that might be a legume or lentil or tofu, and you add your satisfying good fat, and then you find those condiments that really amp up the flavor of a meal, be it like tahini, sriracha, vegan mayo, balsamic glaze, whatever it is that's really easy. And for this, I like to follow Dr. Greger's green, orange, red light focus with food. I think I've got that right. But basically, he says most of your food should be that green light stuff that you can eat really abundantly. That's all the plants and legumes and all of this. And then the orange is, it's still plant-based, but it's a little bit more processed. And the red is the stuff that we don't have it very often. It's higher fat and more processed, but it helps you eat more of that green light food. So if you have this huge, massive salad with all the lentils and roast veggies, and you want to put a dash of vegan mayo on top, I'm so fine with that. In fact, I recommend it.
okay. Um, People often have myths around carbs. They
Mhm.
think that carbs make them fat, and you probably yourself, as a trainer, um, uh, you were avoiding what you called carbs. How has your thinking changed on that?
I'm embarrassed to admit that I perpetuated that myth for years. I made people scared of potatoes and bananas, and I advocated for a super high protein, low carbohydrate approach to fat loss, at least. Not for muscle gain or fitness, but for the person who is interested in fat loss, I advocated that. I was wrong. I now see carbs as so different, whole food carbs. So, by that, I mean they're not processed, nothing good has been taken away, nothing bad has been added. They are just an amazing source of fuel. And I was hesitant to introduce them back into my diet. What I did is I looked at the people, the vegans online that had the fit, strong, smoking hot body that I admired. I looked at them, I looked what they ate because, gosh, we share everything that we eat
Now, were you looking at
nowadays.
me at the time?
I didn't know you. If
Oh,
I'd
all
if I'd
right.
known you, I would have been looking at you.
All right.
Um, but I looked at some amazing athletes out there and I saw that they included things like all the carbohydrates. Side note, I saw that they included tofu, which I'd been scared of for a period of time as well, thanks to the dairy industry propaganda. And I started introducing these foods back in my diet. And that is what I recommend for our listeners who might still be fearful of carbs as well. Prioritize whole food carbs. You know, we all have processed carbs we love as well, and there's room for them too, just more in moderation.
All right. You want to know what my approach is, Kate? I try not
Definitely.
to use this word carbs. Now you use the phrase
Yeah.
whole plant food carbs, something
Yeah.
like that,
Yeah.
which is better. But what I say is a potato isn't even a carb. A potato is a root vegetable.
Oh,
Potato's a root
okay.
vegetable. And if you look at the macronutrient profile of a potato, it's not much different than a carrot, another
Mm.
root vegetable. Yes,
Yeah.
it's most of the calories are from carbohydrate, a smidgen from fat, and a fair amount from protein.
Mm.
And so when we think of it as a carb, we then confuse it in our minds, or people do, with, I don't know, croissants or something,
Yeah.
with white bread or something. But it's not. It's a root vegetable, and as a root vegetable, it's healthy. So potatoes are healthy, sweet potatoes are healthy, carrots are healthy. They're root vegetables. Um, and the only thing I'll call a carb is sugar and its
Mm.
equivalents, because they're all
Yeah.
100% carbohydrate.
Yeah.
But when it's a whole food, it's not 100% carbohydrate. It's got a smidgen of fat. It's got protein. It's got fiber. It's got micronutrients. So I don't want the those who advocate the meat diet to
Mm.
get their way and label healthy foods carbs, right?
100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't get me started on those who advocate the meat only diet.
Yeah, you mentioned earlier having, I think, in the gym, people who advocated the keto diet.
Uh-huh.
Now, that's when I've researched the keto diet, it's particularly insane because you have to get something like 80% of your calories from fat.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that roast beef, which is like 50% fat, isn't fatty enough. So you have to put cheese on your roast beef and cook it in oil or something to get it up to 80%. I mean,
It's ludicrous. And if we were to think not just about our health, obviously it's hugely to our detriment to eat that way. However, if we were to consider the environment and the animals, I just think it's a completely unsustainable and selfish way to eat, you know.
yeah.
But I still get puffer fish, which is a term we use here in Australia. I find it hard to be calm surrounding the keto and carnivore and all of those approaches, because there's
Stay
just
calm. You don't
nothing.
want to be the angry vegan now. Stay calm.
100%. Thank you. But, you know, people like to hear good news about their bad habits. And if I tell you you can keep eating bacon and butter, you're going to be so much more receptive to hearing that. But as the amazing Dr. Michael Greger says, you know, these people following these diets, they might be nice and skinny in their caskets, you know, but you've got to look at all the other impacts between just wanting to lose a little bit of weight,
Hmm.
and all the detrimental impacts to your health.
Yeah. It's like people who eat, the Western diet, eat a lot of animal foods. Their cholesterol goes very high, and then they
Hmm.
take statins, and they get their cholesterol numbers down, and then they die with good cholesterol numbers. That's what
Mm.
statins will do for you if you don't change your diet. They'll enable you to die with much better numbers. To me, that isn't the goal.
We make it so much more complicated than we need to, right?
Yeah.
We just start with whole plant foods, a lot
Yeah.
of color and diversity and abundance,
Yeah.
and that's a really amazing place to start.
Yeah. Um, Tell us about mindset and how it affects health.
So, mindset is everything. The thing that I would see in the gym over 18 years as a personal trainer, it's not the flashiest trainer or nutrition plan or training plan that gets a client the results. It's whether they do consistently or not. So, that adage, an average program followed or nutrition plan followed is going to
Hmm.
get you much better results than the stop start inconsistent program. And that all comes down to mindset, which is my core focus. And often we just want to skip straight past it into the actions. Clients would say, just tell me what to eat and how to move. And that's their primary focus. And I understand that. However, mindset is laying the foundation for your results to come. The strategies that you put in place is going to help you, it's going to pull you through those struggle street times that we all get, every single one of us, irrespective of how often we go to the gym or eat really healthy meals. We all struggle from time to time. However, those of us that achieve consistency, we've done the groundwork. We've admitted our lack of discipline. My clients used to always tell me, but you're so much more disciplined than I am. I'm not. I've just got so many strategies in place. And I guess to get actionable, the first strategy that I recommend for most people is to first define their super compelling goal, their why, what they're looking to achieve, and add massive emotional intensity to that. And then also get really clear on their most important values and beliefs. And once you have that, and again, values are those emotional states you're drawn to. Look at how you spend your time and energy and money. It might be family or love or freedom or integrity or passion. The next step after you've defined the goal, the values, the beliefs is to align them together. So align the actions that you need to take to achieve that goal with your values and beliefs so that when you're taking those actions, it feels congruent and natural and easy rather than in conflict with your values and beliefs.
Okay. And has this been an ongoing process for you? Has this evolved?
I guess it has evolved, and sometimes you consciously evolve it as well. We can probably all relate. So, personal example, freedom is my number one value. It works for me in health and fitness because I see being fit, strong, healthy, having the energy to do what I need to do. I see that as freedom, and integrity is my second value. And so living a vegan lifestyle is non-negotiable, and being fit as a personal trainer is non-negotiable as well. So those two are really easy. However, there was a period of time where I owned a gym franchise and I was
Oh,
trapped, and it was a money hemorrhaging venture and just so many dramas. And the one thing I felt in that business was an absolute lack of freedom. I felt completely trapped. So I almost consciously had to just push freedom down the ladder a little bit, focus on the integrity that I still needed to have to look and
right.
be the part, and maybe focus on the small freedoms that we all have in our life. If our lifestyle isn't, you know, absolute freedom aligned with our goals, we might have the freedom to meditate for 10 minutes in the morning or to do a 15-minute body weight workout or whatever it may be. We can all focus on those tiny ways that we can meet our core values every single day.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, I've often felt that if people can just take the value of love,
Mm,
everybody has somebody they love.
mm-hmm.
take the value of love. And then if we can get them to understand nutrition, get them to understand that the diet we're advocating is the diet that's going to lengthen their lives, make them more fit, make them more healthy. Then, if people say, yeah, but I just love the taste of pork. Yeah, but if you know that it's going to likely to give you a heart attack and you won't be there for those you love,
Mm.
then why would you do it? And so, if people would just lead with the value of love, never mind even for the animals,
Mhm.
which it would be lovely if they cared about the animals. But if you care about the people in your life, and if you understand the scientific reality that the diet we advocate is the optimal human diet, then it's awfully shallow not to want to eat healthfully, not to want to eat a whole foods diet just because you think you like the taste of something else. Have you made any headway with people to change their diet for the ones in their lives, for their loved ones?
Do you know, when I was still a personal trainer, I did make a lot of progress with my existing clients, many of them who had been with me for well over a decade, some 18 years, 15 years, and they would make adjustments because they were very health focused. They lived a good life. They wanted to continue living a good life. They wanted the people they love to as well. So with them, definitely. They were open to it though. Health was, health was a number one value for them. It was how they spent their money with a personal trainer. And so they were very receptive. I think it's much harder when someone's heart and mind are closed. You have to really take so many of the first steps. I'll share a personal example. About a year after mum died, I suggested to dad that we go back to New Zealand, where I grew up, and we saw all the family friends that hadn't been able to make it over since she'd died because it was COVID lockdown times. And I thought, dad and my relationship was still fraught. I thought it would be a good bonding experience for us to see all the people that, I left New Zealand at 21. I hadn't seen many of them for a couple of decades or more. And this was an amazing trip, and we stayed with multiple dear family friends. And something dad noticed was that everywhere we stayed, people just cooked me vegan food and it wasn't a drama. Like, it really wasn't an issue whatsoever. Up until that point in time, particularly since mum became plant-based, dad hadn't cooked so much as a boiled potato for me. Nothing, right? Nothing. And it became a bit of I would make food for him all the time and then had to add his meat to the complete vegan meal. Anyway, after that trip, the first time I came back to visit my father, and I'd arrived late, I'd worked a full week as a personal trainer. We got in from the airport quite late, and he said, I knew you'd be tired, and so I made this tofu stir fry for you. And I was blown away. It was the first time in however many years that I had been vegan that he cooked a complete entire meal for me, and he ate that meal too. And that was huge progress.
Yeah.
We can't fast track it with some people though. As I've said so many times, it's a constant work in progress, and sometimes there are little backward steps. However, there's only to be gained from leading with love. Often, people will meet you closer to what you're aiming for if you lead with that love.
Okay. Now, at the risk of getting a little meta, on this podcast, I am interviewing a podcast host.
True.
Kate, tell us about the Healthification podcast. How'd you come up with that name, and what are your goals for the Healthification podcast?
So, healthification, I see it as much more than just our personal health. I think when we speak to health, it's not just about our individual health, it's about the health of everyone we love, it's about the health of the planet, and it's about the health of everyone that we share that planet with, obviously, including all the animals. And so, I guess that's where healthification came from, as so much more all encompassing. It's my absolute heart. I'm about 860 episodes deep,
Wow.
and it's amazing, right? I get to speak to passionate and compassionate vegan athletes, authors, activists, doctors, entrepreneurs, and this is what gives me hope that I can get to speak to the people I most respect all around the world, and I get to share this information with whoever listens. And sometimes it can be a hard listen because I will interview the undercover investigators and the animal rights activists, and I will have these conversations. I think it's important. Maybe I'm, preaching to the choir and making it too hard for non-vegans to listen. However, also I'll interview the doctors that are just sharing the good news about how you can improve your health. And they're probably the most downloaded episodes. But yeah, that's healthification, and it's the highlight of my week.
How many episodes do you do per week?
Just one. So I have
Just
so
one.
many episodes because the first year when I started, I told myself I'd do 5 a week.
Wow.
And, I do consistency to a fault. So I did 5 a week and they were solo shows. And then I was a little bit more sensible and eased back.
Okay. So now you're doing one per week. I
Yes.
saw that you interviewed my friend Philip Wolin.
Ugh.
He's a
What
he's
a hero. And he's an Aussie. Amazing.
yeah.
He is just the chance to speak to someone who has been so successful in both the corporate world and now as a venture capitalist for good. And the way that he speaks, he is so from the heart and so powerful in the way that he speaks to anyone. He's not intimidated by who he's standing in front of. He is in it for the animals, and that is that. And he is amazing.
It's hard to imagine Philip being intimidated.
Exactly.
Well, Kate, it's been a pleasure speaking with you. And everyone, you can find Kate Galli at strongbodygreenplanet.com. You can look for her journal, the Plant Positive Journal, and you could check out the Healthification podcast. Where do they find the Healthification podcast? All podcast platforms?
Everywhere, all over the place.
All over
Yep.
the place. Kate, it's been a pleasure speaking with you.
It has been such a pleasure, so much fun. Thank you so much for this conversation and for everything you do, Glenn.
Thank you. This has been the Glenn Mercer Show, where everyone listening turns vegan, regains their health, and annoys their friends and relatives. Find us on YouTube at The Glenn Mercer Show and across all your major podcast platforms. Don't forget to subscribe.